Hi everyone, this is Fiona at Drawings in a Drawer, and this is a new video, and it's going to be about watercolor supplies for beginners. What I wish I had known when I started buying watercolor supplies for myself a few months ago when I got into watercolor. I had been doing other art before with acrylics and oils, so I'm not a complete beginner, but yeah. So watercolor brushes, paints, paper, and what I think you should be spending more money on, and what I think you can really avoid spending money on, and yet wasting your money on the beginner stage of your journey into watercolor. So these are brushes, as you can see. I have collected quite a few of them, and these are the ones I use most often. As you can see, I have this plain plastic brush in my case as well, and I take it everywhere, and it has a tube you can put water into. It is very affordable. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it in local art supplies stores everywhere, and yeah, it's really affordable and I really like it and I still use it, as opposed to this watercolor brush here, which is lovely but is much more expensive and has softer bristles but is harder to control. So I would definitely not be getting something like this in the beginning. So let's see what this watercolor brush uh, looks like and how it works. So yeah, let's dive right into that. If I'm going to speed up, sorry, but my editing skills are not exactly excellent, as you can see. Um, so yeah, here we go. There it is. I filled it up with water, and you can easily just press the tube and have watercolor flowing out of the tip of the watercolor brush. And you can regulate the amount of water you get by the pressure you put on the tube. As you can see, it picks up plenty of color and it works fine. Now, I have to apologize for the quality of this video. It is very wobbly as I was holding the camera with my hand as I was trying something new, which didn't really work very well. But I'll take the time for this, this footage of me blending these watercolors, two colors on the paper, to remind you that if you would love to take my class or like to take my class, let me not be so vain, on Skillshare. That is called Women in Watercolor by Fiona Di Pinto. And you will find link to that in the description box. If you would like to see my stuff on Instagram, you can find me at the handle Drawings in a Drawer. And please like and subscribe to my channel. And I would be super appreciative of that, about that, for that, of that. I don't know. I can't remember. Yeah, well, anyway, I am blending here, and as you can see, this brush works fine and it does a good job. It does what a watercolor brush should do, and it won't, you know, make you spend a lot of money. Now, on to watercolor paints. They come in tubes or pans. I had no idea about this in the beginning. I only thought they came in tubes, in pans, and I went and bought an expensive set of watercolor pans. Well, a set of, yeah, watercolor pans. Instead, I have these wonderful Cotman from Winsor & Newton, which are the student grade paints. And you can get a tin like this, which was a tin of mints with a Highland cow on it, which is really cute. And once I'd finished the mints, I used these pans, these plastic back pans. I think I got them again online or at my local art supply store. They're pretty cheap. And this way you can put the pans inside the tin and you can individually pick the colors that you want to have in your palette. However, I would always advise to get three primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. Now, a trick you can use to keep the pans still inside the tin is to use blue tack or Patafix. I can't remember what it's called, what the brand's name is now. It changed since I was a child. And it's that sticky paste, and you stick it to the bottom of the tin and you stick the pan on top so that they're not moving about all over the place inside the tin. And then you take your tube and you simply squirt it into the pan, and you can let it sit overnight and use it when it's dry. or you can actually use it when it's still wet, but be sure to pick up a very small amount of paint and kind of test it on a separate piece of paper before you actually dive into painting, because you might get too much color when you pick it up if it's still at this stage where it's like literally, yeah, completely wet. Yeah, so I was telling you, get three primary colors: red, yellow, and blue, or you know, shades of those colors. Because you can mix most things with these. You can even mix skin tones with these. And remember to swatch them out on a piece of paper, which you can then stick to the top of the tin and have there with you all the time, because remember that watercolors won't look the same in the pan as they do on paper. So you will need this as a reference while you are painting to know what the color is going to look like on paper. Yeah, and have them in the same position as they are laid out in the tin. So visually it's just more easy and well organized, better organized this way. What else? Yeah, I also got another thing off Amazon, which was this tin, and it was empty, this Medine watercolor. And I used it to create my own set of skin tones, because I do a lot of portraits and I was kind of bored of mixing in skin tones all the time. So I kind of used tubes to create these mixtures. So I have, yeah, apart from loads of glitter fell in here and created a mess, sorry about that. So I have this first like basic skin tone, which I add more or less water to, then I have shadow tones, I have darker, I have blush, and I have like, I think a Payne's grey on top to create the darker things like eyelashes. And I used to use this mixture a lot in the beginning, and I don't use it that much now. Another good option is Kuretake Gansai Tambi Japanese watercolors if you want more variety. These are quite affordable. I think they're about 35 euros on Amazon for 36 huge pans, or you can get 24 pans for about 25 euros, and they work pretty well. You can find a review among my other videos on my channel on here, a more in-depth review about these watercolors. Sketchbooks, so we're on to paper now. In the beginning, when you start using watercolor, you will only use it in small areas like the cheeks and the lips and maybe the eyes, and a tiny amount of watercolor can be used in normal sketchbooks, which are pretty cheap. But the most useful thing to have a sketchbook for is to jot down ideas like these, thumbnails or whatever. So I think before starting your painting, you should, lay out the idea in a sketchbook. Watercolor paper. Artist's Loft is a very affordable brand of watercolor paper, and I used this quite a bit in the beginning when I was using a bit less of the wet on wet technique and more of the wet on dry, with less water, less color, less everything. But then, the roll of drums, I discovered Arches, and I could literally not go back, because I haven't found any paper that can be compared to Arches as of now, as of yet. Do you say that? Anyway, so it's so thick and it has a really nice texture that really literally grabs the paint. And a good idea would be to, cut it down so that you are, getting more quality for, yeah, the same amount of money, but more quantity and quality, because 12 sheets of paper, 100% cotton, 300 GSM, cost 15 euros on Amazon in Europe. But if we cut it down into half the size of an A4 sheet, or even into 4 rectangles, we are getting, this really good paper and quite a lot of painting space. I'll show you the difference. This is a very quick portrait I did on a different kind of watercolor paper that didn't really work as well as Arches. As you can tell, the paint has lots of back runs, it's puddling. The paper just didn't hold the watercolor paint. In fact, I didn't really use this for watercolor again, though it was intended to be a sketchbook for watercolor. And on the other side, in a minute, you'll see a portrait I did on Arches watercolor paper. And this was only about 2 months later. Of course, it took me longer. My skills have improved since then. But it took me about 10 layers to achieve this result for the skin. And the other kind of paper would never take that many amounts of layers. I could simply not achieve this on lower quality paper. At least that's my experience. So take those scissors and buy arches and cut, cut, cut. Of course, I wouldn't say buy arches immediately, in no way. As I said, use less watercolor first and experiment. Okay, then maybe go on to arches. A kneaded eraser. You're going to need the kneaded eraser to rub out pencil lines because a regular eraser would be too harsh on watercolor paper. Pencils. Okay, pencils. You're going to need a 2H pencil because it's hard and it doesn't really blend into the watercolor paper. So you can erase it more easily. And the Uniball Signo white gel pen is like a friggin' magic wand. It just helps you get those highlights in there in the eyes and the lips. It's beautiful. It's a must-have for me. Colored pencils. When you're a beginner and you're not using as much watercolor, maybe, especially if you're doing portraits and that kind of thing, going over the watercolor with colored pencils will help you get intensity in there. So yeah, I did this because my desk wasn't looking very nice. This is the end of the video. See you next time. Thanks for following me. Thanks for watching till the very end. And sorry about my crappiness. Bye.